Well, we're all about the Archers, and we are so excited today because we are here to talk to the wonderful Charlotte Martin, who plays Susan Carter. Charlotte, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be here. I'm looking forward to the next 40-odd minutes. It'll be great.
I'm sure you will. Now, I've got the first question. I've got the first question, Charlotte. It's a crucial one. We've had the biggest wave of storylines in ages, directly involving your grandson and your son. Everyone's talking about it, except Susan. I mean, what on earth is going on, Charlotte?
I don't know. I listen to the omnibus, and I am listening. I'm thinking, what is Susan saying in the background? What's going on? Because she's bound to have, words of wisdom, criticisms, judgments. We know what Susan's like. So I'm really excited to get back into studio to kind of link in with all these storylines because, as you say, it's really close to Susan's heart. So we'll wait and see what she's got to say about that.
Also, she's the village's biggest gossip, and she hasn't gossiped one word about this yet.
No, do you know, I was thinking about this earlier about Susan being a gossip, and she absolutely is, and I love the fact that she is. But I think she's mellowing a little bit, I don't think her gossiping has been as excessive as it was a few years ago. And I think she's kind of mellowing and becoming more of a sage of Ambridge. Susan the Sage. Because I listen, to the odd episodes, particularly when she's with Alice and Chris, where she's offering them very good advice. And I'm thinking, is that where she's going? I mean, I don't know. But she seems to have taken all her gossipy tendencies and she's kind of curated them a bit and made them into more useful and more, more useful for the people that she's talking to. So I think she's mellowing. But I miss those real gossipy moments. So I'm hoping they don't go completely.
No.
Well. So if you think that she's mellowing a bit and becoming Susan the Sage, who do you think could take on the gossip crown in Ambridge?
Oh, gosh, no, I don't want to give it to anyone. But, I mean, I suppose if there was anyone, I'm thinking about the village shop because the village shop is the hub. So perhaps Joy might be the one. I could see her taking up that role because I don't think we've seen elements of Joy, but not Joy as the total person. And I think that might be something that she might be able to pick up on. Don't you?
Yeah, good choice. I think so. She can talk for England, so yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I know.
But it being Joy, it'd be nice gossip, wouldn't it? She wouldn't be horrible about people behind her.
Is there such a thing as nice gossip?
Now there's another podcast, Charlotte.
Exactly.
One of my favourite things with Susan lately has been this intercom that's been installed at the dairy for viewers to be able to converse. I just thought you must have had a lot of fun with those scenes.
We did, and it actually kind of touched on real life slightly. In that when we first moved to the mailbox, there was talk of a window, and the window's still there, although it's covered up with curtains. But the plan had been for people to come to the BBC, wander around, and also see us recording the Archers at certain times. And we were kind of, oh my God, this is, we need a telly fee if that's the case.
Yeah.
So that never happened. But it made us think of all those moments when we could have possibly been seen by everyone who wanted to wander on by recording the programme. But I thought it was a really weird idea. When I read the script, I thought, does this actually happen? Do people have viewing windows to see people? I don't know where it came from. It just sounds really bizarre to me.
Sounds a bit dodgy, isn't it?
Well,
it sounds a bit dodgy, yeah.
There is a food hall near where I live, where there are viewing windows so you can see the food that they're preparing, but there is no intercom switch of any kind, so you can't converse with them.
Could you imagine? I mean, just well, it beggars belief, doesn't it? Really.
Yeah.
So I don't know whether that will continue. Is it still in the dairy? I don't know. I haven't been in for a while.
Well, if you don't know, we won't.
We believe it's still there, yeah.
Oh, gosh, well, yeah,
it's become a silent character at the moment.
yeah. As many.
Can I just go back to Susan the gossip? Because I read somewhere that you believe Susan's hunger for gossip is a symptom of her loneliness.
Yeah. Well, I think she came into the programme as this very naive young country girl, and obviously met Neil and got pregnant, and the rest is history. And I think she has never really known herself particularly well. I don't think she got a very good sense of self, and I think in order to feel that she belonged and fitted in with people, with the village, I think she used gossip as a way of kind of not endearing herself, but linking in with people and creating little unions with various characters. And I think that makes her feel part of the village. Do you understand what I mean? Yeah, I think she's not very well understood, in that I think she uses gossip as a way of connecting when she hasn't really got the skills to connect with people from the beginning. She was very naive, very young, came from this dysfunctional family, and I think that's why the gossip developed. I think just as a way of connecting.
Because you also said that you think
not a very good way of connecting with people. I must admit, but
you
I think that's what I used it for.
You also said that Susan is you, in other words, us, in that she verbalises a lot of what the audience is thinking.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Whatever we want to say about her, she says what everybody's thinking. Yeah, so she just verbalises it. So we have to thank her for that, don't we?
We do.
Yeah.
So going back to when you started at the Archers, I read that it was third time lucky for you with all the interviews and audition processes. Did you have any idea how big Susan was going to be and involved with all of Ambridge life, really? Because she just gets everywhere because of all her different jobs and everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, I went in, as you say, I had 2 previous auditions for a couple of parts, which I didn't get. And the producer at the time was William Smethurst. And he said to me, no, we really, really like you. We want you back. We want you in the programme. And I thought, yeah, well, you probably say that to all the actors that come through. And so didn't think anything of it. And then obviously got Susan. But I thought it was probably just going to be a short-lived thing, a young girl in the village. Never had any thinking about being in a programme for 40 years or whatever it is. It's been a total shock really to me, because they didn't describe in much detail what Susan was, so I kind of had a bit of a free rein really on where I could take her. But I don't know why, but I think the writers that we have had over the years have just really liked her and really used her very well and written for her so well. I've been really, really lucky, and it's just snowballed really. So I'm really pleased. Gosh, I'm amazed that I've been in for such a long time, but never imagined in my wildest dreams I would still be here talking about the Archers, these many years later.
And as well as the scenes when she's gossiping, we've heard, again more recently, scenes when she's vulnerable, particularly the lasagna dish that she went to retrieve from Shula's with Neil's well, whatever Neil was thinking. That must have been another element of the character for you to be acting out.
And again, you know, I think it's down to the writers. The writers are very good at, you know, picking out little layers of all of the characters' personalities, really. And it's very nice to have those moments because you can really shape the character then and make them more than just a, you know, two-dimensional being in the village. So again, as I say, down to the writers. We have a great number of writers and have had over the years who, for Susan particularly, you know, I'm talking from my perspective, have written for me tremendously well. So I've been really, really lucky. Because, you know, at the end of the day, you get the script as an actor and, you know, you do what you can with it. But actually, if the writing's not there and the sense of the character and the reality of the character aren't there, then it's hard to lift it off the page and you know, throw it out there. So yeah, really lucky.
Can we talk about Susan's accent, because that is fascinates me, and it's so unique within the Archers. I mean, I'm sensing a bit of a West Midlands twang in your voice anyway. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So how did you develop that particular Susan sound?
Well, again, you know, coming into the programme, they said country accent. What does that mean? You know, you could go always with that. So I just rounded off elements of a West Midlands accent because my history is that I was born in France but only lived there for 2 years and came back to the Midlands. So I'm kind of Midlands, you know, based really, and have been for most of my life. And so I knew what a kind of Worcestershire-ish kind of accent was, slightly countrified, but still with those West Midlands tones to it. So hopefully, you know, that's what I've given. But yeah, no, there was no specific direction about exactly what they wanted in terms of accent. So again, you know, I kind of did my best, and it seems to have been okay.
It's so distinct. It's so distinctive. I mean, the way you play around with some vowels is extraordinary.
But you know, I think also what I do probably subconsciously is also I'm a great music fan, and you know, see the spoken word as musical as music is. And so what I try to do, especially I think for radio, is use my voice as melodically as I can and use all the, you know, intonations and variants that you can have in a voice as much as possible. So that's what I've done with her. I've kind of played around with that a bit, I think. So to make her as distinctive as possible, because I think that's another thing that coming into a soap opera, or should I call it that? I don't know whether I should call it a soap opera. Continuing drama.
Real life.
It is. It is.
You have to make your character stand out a bit from the others in order to make it long lasting. And I think at the moment, I think hand on heart, I think there's nobody else like Susan in the village. So,
oh no.
Yeah, definitely not.
No.
In a good way.
In a good way. Thank you.
Yeah. So you used to work at a university. Did you get many people recognising your voice, or were you kind of lucky that because it was a university, it was maybe a slightly younger audience and they maybe didn't hear the Archers and know who you were?
Most people don't leap to the fact they say, "Oh my God, that's your voice." I've only ever had that happen once in a bookshop, which was very strange, and it was actually. I was on the stairs and I was talking to someone and they were coming up the stairs and he said, "Are you Susan Carter?" And I thought, what? And I almost fell down the stairs. And it turned out that this guy was a book rep and he was delivering some Archers books. And he was obviously a fan as well, and he'd had Archers on his mind. Really bizarre, really bizarre. So that's only ever happened once. Now, at the university, no one, when I first started working in it, a few people knew what I did, as well as the academic stuff, but most people didn't. There were lots of young people working there, never heard of the Archers, or had heard of the Archers and thought, oh, no, that's not for me. But the interesting thing is, you know, when I used to go to conferences and things all over the world, in fact, I'd be having conversation with various academics, and then this would come up, or one of my colleagues would say, oh, you know what she does as well, don't you? And I'd think, oh no, here we go. And so many people had listened or did listen to the Archers, and it was wonderful because I found fans all over the globe. Incredible.
Can we talk about some of the scenes you had with Angela, who played Jennifer, because there was a very special relationship with those two, and I was always inspired by a particular kitchen plumbing scene where the two of you decided you were going to fix this sink problem, come what may. And I have to say, it inspired me to go on and do some plumbing myself. But that was a very special relationship. It must be much missed, but also much remembered.
Oh, very much so. Yes, we for a few years prior to Jenny and Susan kind of having scenes together, we would always say, Angie and I would always say, oh gosh, we really, really want them, because of the link by marriage and because of Susan's social pretensions and, you know, wanting to be part of the Aldridge family would have been, you know, kind of an absolute dream. We thought this is comedy gold, really. I just, you know, so we were so pleased when they finally started to link the two of us together, and we had lots and lots of fun playing off, you know, one another, and you know, and basically I think we both decided that actually Susan and Jennifer were sort of the same person in a way, but just from different classes. You know, they both had those pretensions. They both valued family, and their family was very important to them. But actually, there were lots of parallels between the two characters. But we loved it, and really, really miss having Angie in studio to work with us.
I'm sure. I was trying to think this morning, whose house, Jennifer's or Susan's, would you be asked to take your shoes off before you went in? Who would you say?
I think probably Susan. You know, at the end of the day, I think Jennifer would think it. She'd think, "Oh God, I wish they'd take their shoes off," but actually wouldn't say it because it's a bit common to actually ask people to do that. But Susan wouldn't care. Susan would just say, "Take your shoes off." Yeah, I think Susan.
Charlotte, I've got a confession, I'm afraid, because when I first started listening to the Archers, I never really liked Susan. I just didn't like her until your lockdown monologue, and that completely changed. Now that completely changed it for me, because I thought for me it provided a real insight into her character, and I realised she's much more complex and more interesting and nuanced and so forth. Also, I think it was probably the strongest monologue. I thought you did a superb job as well. But that was the moment when I started to like Susan, because I suddenly got to know her.
Oh, interesting. Because, I mean, you know, there was a lot of criticism about the lockdown monologues. Yeah. And I think what we mustn't forget is that the programme did its absolute very best to keep it on the air, when it could have been very easy for us to say, okay, let's not do it for a while, we can't, you know, but we tried every which way. And that was our first ditch effort of doing that. And it was difficult. I think Susan was very fortunate, again, down to the writers and the production team, in securing that radio job. You know, that was perfect, really, for her.
Yeah.
And again, you know, I don't think anybody else would have done that, any of the other characters would have taken on a radio show. But of course Susan would. Of course she would.
She did.
So I'm very pleased to hear you say that, Quentin, because you know, it's a lot of work from everybody involved.
It was very. It was
a bit disappointing to see the criticisms about it, because we thought, you know, well, would you rather us take the programme off, or you know, carry on? And I think everyone did an absolutely sterling job. Really did.
Well, for me, yours was the standout one. It was very, very good.
Well,
superbly acted. Very, very good. So I now like Susan. I look forward to Susan's scenes. I thought I'd never say that.
I'm really pleased to hear that.
Yeah,
you know, when she's coming back on air, I don't know whether the radio show will ever emerge again, but you know, we live in hope.
It was just funny though, because she secured the drive time slot, if my memory serves me right, but in lockdown when no one was driving, which it did make me smile. I thought that was classic.
Oh, she was in her element there, wasn't she? My goodness me. I think she had her eyes fixed on, you know, Radio 2 or something like that. You know,
the very least.
Wonderful stuff. Love doing that. Sitting on my landing upstairs, surrounded by duvets, you know. It was gosh, it's hard to remember, you know, just how difficult all that was. It's just I just remember when we were all kind of recording at home, and you know, we were all over the country, and we were all sitting in either little bedrooms or studies, or in my case on the landing, all kind of connecting and you know, producing an episode of The Archers. It was amazing. And it's hard to, we think, oh gosh, did we really do that? Quite a coup.
But also to sustain an entire episode by yourself. It's a big ask of an actor, isn't it?
Yep, massive ask.
Yeah.
I always wonder with those lockdown episodes, because you're recording in your household, did you have to swear everyone to secrecy in case something came out and everyone heard things? Because we previously interviewed Holly, who played Alice, and obviously she had the baby in lockdown, and people in her family in the household could hear her having the baby and what was happening. Did you have to just swear everyone to secrecy?
Absolutely.
Make sure nothing gets out?
Without a doubt. I mean, that's always the case. I mean, particularly then, because you were recording, obviously, and they could hear everything that was going on. But we always have to do that anyway. You know, our partners and spouses and children and stuff always see a pile of scripts on the side, so at any moment, you know, they can have a quick look and see what's happening. So everybody's sworn to secrecy.
You don't have to keep the scripts on you at all times in lock and key. And
so don't ever mention this to anyone outside of here. But
Charlotte, another of my scenes, I seem to be recounting all my favourite scenes with Susan, but there are so many, was the family photograph where she decided Neil had to go on a diet.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of work that was done. Poor Neil, I did feel sorry for him. Was that photo quite memorable for you?
Yeah. Actually, I'd completely forgotten about it. But yes, again, you know, Susan's drive for approval, I think that is, isn't it? You know, that is, again, goes back to her sense of self and insecurities. But yeah, I think, you know, she loves Neil to bits. I mean, I think they're probably the happiest couple in the village, because I think they just get one another. And Neil is a wonderful character and lovely actor, Brian Hewlett, who I love working with. But that was, I mean, you know, I could hear in my mind voices of listeners all over the country thinking, yeah, I'd probably do the same. you know, everybody thinking, God, my husband's belly's getting a bit fat. He better, you know, kind of. It's just something that felt natural to Susan and Neil particularly, but also felt natural as something probably most wives might do if they were having this very special photograph. So didn't feel odd, but Yeah, I'd forgotten about that one, Philippa. That's
Philippa forgets.
you lot. I mean, you scare me really, because you have such a great memory of all the episodes and everything that's gone on. And honestly, sometimes the actors think, "What episode?" So it's great,
Yes.
but it's also a bit scary, because you think, God, what episodes are they going to remember?
Well,
Where do we start, Charlotte?
Yeah.
I'm glad you stressed the importance of your Neil, because I think they are such a convincing couple. I believe them. There are some couples that remain nameless in Ambridge who I'm not convinced by, but Susan and Neil, absolutely. Talking of Neil, obviously it's a huge feather in your character's cap that you have secured one of the great euphemisms within Ambridge. We have Lakey Hill, and of course we have Chile. I mean, you've made it, haven't you, Charlotte? You're there.
Completely. I love that. I absolutely love it. I remember the first time I mentioned Chile, and it wasn't particularly written in the script, let's say it in a sexual way, but I just did. And for some reason, that kind of, okay, where are we going with this? And then I started to see people mentioning it and using it on social media, and thought, oh, okay, we can run with this one, can't we? So I love it. I absolutely love it. So funny.
It is the best.
And interesting that I actually don't make a chili at home. I don't. I don't think I've ever cooked a chili, but it's hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah, I thought those utensils behind you were all for chili.
No, sadly not.
No, it's a great line in The Archers, and we'll live and live.
Brilliant. Yeah, absolutely excellent.
Yeah.
From one lockdown to another type of lockdown,
Let me just
I wasn't listening. Yeah,
yes, go for
Yeah,
it.
go on.
So from one lockdown to another one, I wasn't listening when Susan went to prison and everything, but I know it was such a huge storyline. It was in the press, it was in the media. What was it like being part of such a huge kind of storyline, get Susan out, save Ambridge and everything? It must have been incredible.
It was amazing, actually, because I hadn't been in the programme that long. I'm trying to remember, you probably remember this, what year it was. But it broke, the story broke about, women going to prison and going for being sentenced to prison sentences for ridiculous amounts of time for very small crimes and things that, they probably shouldn't have been in prison for. And I couldn't believe it, to be honest. I had so many press interviews. One of the strangest things of all, and I've said this in interviews before, but I can never quite believe this. I was asked by, do you remember Kilroy? Do you remember that programme Kilroy?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was asked to go on Kilroy to talk about women in prison with real women who'd been to prison. And I thought, I can't do this. And I'm so glad I didn't, because I could have done. I was a relatively young actor, fairly new to the business, all this kind of, interest from the media. And I could have quite easily gone down that route. But thankfully, I thought long and hard about it and thought, no, this is not appropriate. I have no idea what that experience would be like. I can imagine as an actor, but there is no way I'm going on national television to talk with people who've really experienced it. So I didn't do that. So that was one of the bizarrest things, really, because I thought, I don't know, why they even considered that, but anyway, they did. And then I had press shoots, and I was on the front of the newspapers. It was mentioned in the House of Commons. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And I can't quite believe, again, that took off in the way it did. But it obviously hit a nerve with a lot of people. And there were a group of Archers fans at the time, and I can't remember the lady's name, but she started a Free the Ambridge One campaign. And she had all these little badges, and I've got one somewhere upstairs which says Free the Ambridge One. And all those kinds of things. Just crazy times.
Yeah.
1993, apparently.
Was it really? Okay, so I've been in the programme for 10 years. So, but, for most of us, especially in radio, you don't get those big media interest stories necessarily. So for that to have happened was quite intense, really.
Well, it was the same with Rob and Helen, of course. Yeah.
Exactly.
And also Dead Ringers have pulled the leg of the programme for the recent storylines as well. It was featured last week. But Rob and Helen and your stories were the big ones, weren't they?
Yeah, I think I can't quite remember. Again, you may know this, but prior to that hitting the media in the way that it did, I can't remember whether there was anything that media kind of alarmist or whatever you want to call it, but that had hit the media in such a large way prior to that. I don't know whether you can remember anything like that.
I mean, Grace's death in the fire hit the media, but of course the media was so different then. But in terms of grabbing the attention of all different types of media, I think Susan's imprisonment. But Charlotte, we've talked about, serious storylines and motivation, all sorts of things, but now we come to the real crux question for you. Okay. And that is about biscuits. What is Susan's favourite biscuit?
Oh, my goodness. Susan's favourite biscuit. Well, currently she's on a diet, so she doesn't eat biscuits. If she had to choose her favourite biscuit, I would probably think that it would be a chocolate hobnob.
Very good.
Because,
very good.
It's a bit of everything, isn't it, really, a chocolate hobnob? So yes. But she doesn't let Neil have more than one.
Yeah. Poor Neil.
Because you know about his tendency to run to fat and all that. But
poor Neil.
What a bizarre question, Philip. I was not expecting that.
Biscuits are very important on this podcast, Charlotte. So yeah.
So what are your favourites? I'm going to turn it around and ask you.
Okay, I'll go for chocolate malted milk. Go on, Quentin, yours.
Well, I did have 3 milk chocolate digestives today, but I've just got into milk chocolate malted milks as well, and they are fantastic. I like a custard cream as well. I'm greedy, really greedy. But if you force me, I think you can never beat a milk chocolate digestive. Ultimately. Yeah.
Well, my favourite, Marks and Spencer's do these biscuits that are covered in extra thick chocolate, so you can get away with saying that they're a biscuit, but really they're a slab of chocolate. So those are mine. But my tip, Charlotte, is chocolate hobnobs, best eaten straight out of the freezer.
Oh, yes. I've done that.
Oh, you know about this?
I had this conversation with someone recently. I think it was my daughter, who likes chocolate straight out of the fridge. She always puts it in the fridge or the freezer because we like it really cold. And she told a friend that that's what she did, and they went, "What? Chocolate in the fridge? That's ridiculous." But it's just something that we've always done as a family. But that's a good tip. In the freezer, really cold.
Taste transformation.
There's a bit of a chocolate thing here. All the biscuits had chocolate on.
Charlotte, will we come to the section which are the questions from our Facebook group? And please, there are a lot of questions, so please feel free to answer them as quickly as you want. I must tell you before we get started that you've got more questions than anybody else that we've interviewed, and the response times of people, within a couple of hours of the notification going up, there were so many questions there. So you are much loved.
That's lovely.
Okay, we kick off the first one from Pam, and she asks you, if providing psychological therapy to certain people could send a therapist seeking help, who, in your opinion, would be the most and the least likely character to send someone around the bend?
The least likely. person to
Send
send someone.
Who, in your opinion, would be the most and the least likely character to send someone round the bend in Ambridge, by the sounds of it?
Okay, Neil wouldn't send anybody around the bend because he's just too sweet and too level. Yeah. The person who would send you around the bend would be Eddie Grundy. Without a doubt. He's hard work, isn't he?
Yeah. So my next question's from Sally, and she wants to have your chili recipe, please. Now, assuming that you don't cook chili, so obviously Susan's chili recipe she needs.
Okay, yeah. Well, she's very welcome to it. But actually, she may have to wait for the new edition of Susan's cookbook, which is coming out shortly in the year.
Love it.
It's called Seven Ways with Chili. Where did that come from? I don't know.
Oh yeah, and the Borchester Echo is going to be all over that. I'm sorry. The next question's from Abby, who says, "Could you, Charlotte, be friends with Susan in real life? If so, why? And if not, why not?"
You see, no, she's not the kind of person I would have as a friend. I mean, it's a shame to say that, but she's not. I think, she has a good foundation, but actually, there are lots of things about her. I am not a gossip. I don't like gossiping, and I don't like, kind of getting involved in people's business. I'm quite a private person, actually, and kind of keep myself to myself. So she wouldn't be someone who I would naturally kind of become friends with. But there are elements of her that I love. I love the fact that she's devoted to Neil and to her family. And I love her accidental comedy. I love it to bits. So there are bits of her. I might take bits of her as a friend.
Okay. Heather would like to ask you, who can out-gossip Susan in Ambridge?
Oh, nobody. Word. They're all too worried about saying the wrong thing, whereas Susan has sort of no filter, so she'll just say it how it is. So nobody. I mean, really, do you think there is anybody?
I've just thought about this. I think potentially Chelsea, because she's like says it how it is.
Yeah, she might have. Yeah, she might be able to go there, but. Currently, I think Susan's, gossip number one.
We're talking Susan Premier League and all the others, Championship at the most.
Exactly.
League One, probably.
Yeah,
okay.
My next question's from Maggie, and she says, have you ever been disappointed by a storyline for Susan or wished things have gone differently?
Disappointed. I don't think I've been disappointed in. I've thought that perhaps, as we all do when we get storylines, that might go this way or that way, and when it's gone one way, you've thought, it'd be interesting to have seen what would have happened if it had gone another way. No, I mean, I've said it several times. The writing on the programme is fantastic, and they generally get it absolutely right, and do the right thing for the right characters, and while sometimes you read a script and you think, oh my god, is that going to happen, that kind of further down the line you're going to think, well, that's why that was like that at that time, and that's why she did that. No, I mean, I thank my lucky stars that I get the scripts I get and the writing I get, for Susan. She's great, so no disappointments, no.
Good.
Next question is from Georgie, who says, you've been with the Archers now for over 40 years. What would you say is the biggest change you've seen to the programme in that time? And is there anything you'd change now?
Okay, so we moved from the gorgeous Pebble Mill. Pebble Mill, for a lot of us who've been in the programme a long time, was like just really special to us. Special place, special memories. lots and lots of stuff going on from the Midlands, productions of all types. It was a real hub of activity. Now we've moved to the mailbox. It's much quieter. You'll have seen in the press, talk about, the arts funding and how, little production is being made in Birmingham and the Midlands. And that's a sad, I feel really sad about that, because, as I say, when Pebble Mill was there, it was just constantly a hubbub of, productions and creativity. I think one of the big changes I've seen to the Archers is particularly not just the move, but also the size of the cast. The cast has grown exponentially. When I first went into the programme, it was much, much smaller. There was a little clutch of actors who'd been in it a long time, and they were the kind of foundation, and then you'd have the odd character come in. But now I think the cast is enormous, really. So that has an impact then on storylines and how many characters you hear at any one time. So that's progression, and we've got to continually grow the programme and introduce new characters and younger characters, which is really important to keep it current and interesting for everyone. But yeah, I think those are probably the two main changes that have affected us. And that, in a way, I wish Pebble Mill was still there. And I wish, and I pray that we produce more programmes in the West Midlands and use a lot of local talent. We have tons and tons of really creative and talented actors and performers in the West Midlands. And I don't think we use them well. So that's what I would hope for in the future. Okay.
Right. Laura asks, what word or phrase gets you into Susan mode?
Gosh. Well, of course, what I'm always asked to say whenever I meet people and they find out who I am is, "Oh, take off those muddy boots, Neil." So now, while that is a weird thing to say, I mean, I think I probably only said it twice, but for some reason, I'm asked to say that quite regularly. Really weird. So that doesn't get me into Susan mode. What gets me into Susan mode? I think probably just saying, "Oh, Neil."
Yeah.
And then we can kind of, carry on with that.
Yes.
But, yeah.
I love the way you say Christopher as well. You seem to build in extra vowels into that word.
Stuff. I love it when you say my Neil as well, when you're talking about him to others. My Neil.
My Neil.
So the next question's from Tony. I seem to be getting all the certain themed questions going on here. How many times a week does Susan have chili?
Well, it depends. Let's say she might have it, 2 or 3 times a year.
Whoa.
But those are very special occasions. So, it's
5 days on holiday.
At the moment, it's going out. It used to be more frequently, but it's not anymore.
Well, on that, I'm zooming on to the next question straight away. And this one's from Barry. Barry says, "Charlotte, your portrayal of Susan is supreme. I love the character of Susan, who can be really kind, but also destructive in her attitude and loose tongue. As a psychologist in real life, how do you manage the dichotomy between your clinical self and the ultra gossip Susan?"
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because, we were just previously talking about, the phrase or the words that I would use to get me into Susan. And it's very similar to that. I'll walk into studio, and as soon as you're in studio and you're surrounded by things like, Ambridge on the wall and, red lights and microphones and stuff, all the academic stuff just vanishes. And I'm straight into actor and Susan mode. And So, and then when I leave studio, it disappears. It's almost like I live two separate lives, really. I remember speaking to someone who was in the program for a short while, and they also had another full-time job and did acting on the side, and they would say, you know, kind of it's like having two personalities. And you're able to just switch those on and switch that off and switch that off and switch that on. And I don't know. I think the fact that I've been doing it for such a long time, it's almost like a automatic now. Never really thought about it that deeply. Actually, it's something I might think about later, but never really delved into. I just do it. I think it's like an automatic thing. But as I said, you know, when we were talking prior to the interview, my first love was always acting. You know, from when I was a tiny little girl going to dancing lessons, I always wanted to be performing, and so I think the whole acting thing is probably the most natural state for me to be in. You know, the performing side, and so the academia came kind of later. So I think it's probably the most authentic me.
Yeah, because we should point out now that you've gone back to acting full time now. You are no longer a research psychologist.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a question I'm tagging on. I mean, when you were a research psychologist, how much did that discipline inform how you play Susan?
Oh, massively, man. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why I was interested in psychology in the first place, was because I think being an actor, you have to have a real desire to understand how we all tick as human beings. And so the psychology was almost a natural progression, really, from that. You know, if you're an actor, you are interested in psychology. And so my specialism was youth mental health, and it was depression. And I also worked in early psychosis detection, so looking for early warning signs of psychosis, which is what a lot of people understand as schizophrenia. So all of those kind of early warning signs, those developmental things, developmental psychology, how children and how we all create who we are and find out who we are and behave in the world socially and interpersonally, are all fundamental, really, and really useful skills for an actor to have in order to kind of really get under the skin of the character that you're playing. So I try not to do it too much, because I don't want to get too clinical about Susan, but it certainly helped in shaping her in the way that I see fit. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, you must be having a field day with your grandson George. Anyway, back to the other questions from we got this one from Sue, and she says, "Is Susan genuinely malicious, or does she just love the attention when she passes on gossip?"
Yeah. Well, I don't think any of it comes from a bad place. You know, we were talking before about, you know, Susan and why she was a gossip and why she became a gossip in the first place. And I think it goes back to my point about her using it as a way of connecting with other people. I think she's probably fundamentally quite an introvert. And I say that because I think if you look at her kind of social group, she's got Neil, who's her husband, she's got the kids, and she's got Clary, but she hasn't really got anybody else apart from that. And I think she probably finds it very hard to make friends for one reason or another. So I think she uses gossip, and this is, if you read any academic literature on gossiping, it's quite interesting that that's how gossiping was actually first established. It was a way of kind of creating in groups and out groups and alliances and connections, and I think that's how Susan uses the gossip. So I don't think it's malicious. I think it's the only, or one of the only ways she knows in which to make connections with other people. But I think she forgets that actually sometimes it can be hurtful and damaging and judgmental, and I think she forgets about that. She probably goes home after having had a good gossip and thinks, "Oh God, should I have said that? I'm not sure." But she said it anyway, so there's nothing really to do. But I think she uses it in that way.
That kind of links on with my question from Nikki. She said, for a character that's lived in Ambridge for a long time, Susan doesn't have many close friends. She has got a heart of gold, really. So why do you think she struggles? Is it her love of gossip, which is pretty much what you've been saying? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really do think it comes from that place. And I also think she has good intentions. I think she truly believes that sometimes when she says things, they are for the right intentions, and she's not doing them to be horrible to anyone, but she's just saying it as it is, or trying to offer her help in some way, but has sometimes it happens in a difficult manner, which I don't think she probably opens her mouth before she engages her brain.
Well, we've got 4 more questions from the Facebook group, so you're being very patient with us. Thank you. The next one is from Max, who says, with your experiences as a psychologist, have the editor or writers ever called on your expertise for help with a storyline, like George?
No, they haven't. Which is quite interesting. I don't know whether they want to blur the lines and perhaps think, because what often happens is they'll have an expert, if they need any expert opinion from outside of the programme, coming in to advise. But we have discussions about psychological issues in studio, and sometimes they say, "Oh, what do you think about this?" But I've never been asked to advise on any of the characters as yet.
Now we're back to Now we're back to culinary matters now, Charlotte. This is from Dawn. Does Susan think that Neil is getting too old for her special chilies, or does she think he's overdue for one?
Well, let's see. Where are we now? It's May now, isn't it? So what did I say? 3 times a year. So yeah, probably due one actually.
Yeah. Well.
Heard it here first.
He does love them. He does love them. You're gonna have to mark this interview as X-rated, I think, aren't you?
As long as we're talking about chilies, we're fine.
That's all we're talking about, Philippa.
Exactly. Yes. Nothing else.
She blushes easily, does our Philippa.
So, moving on quickly. My next question's from Claire. What would Susan's dream job be if she wasn't working in the dairy and the shop?
Her dream job? Well, I think, it goes back to lockdown. I think she loved being a radio DJ, or whatever you want to call them. So I think she'd have a programme playing lots of her favourite music. But I also think, I think would be wonderful that she'd have a phone in. And people could phone in with their problems. She could advise them, like an agony aunt thing.
Yes, yes.
That would be fabulous. I'd love to do that. So that's what she'd do.
I love that idea. We need that immediately.
Yeah,
we come to the final question from our Facebook group, Charlotte, which is from Rachel. Rachel says, does Charlotte think she has the most fun character to play in Ambridge?
Do you know what? Possibly, yes, because she gets to do the drama. She gets to do the comedy, and I love doing comedy. And again, the writers write such great comedy for Susan. And she also gets to be kind of a linchpin in terms of, you know, being in the background of storylines but talking about them to other people, which is great. So I get all three, and you know, that's a joy. And they often, I mean, going back to the comedy, often I pick up the script and I think, what? She's doing that? You know, recently she was 60. And do you remember she did the six things at 60? I mean, God, honestly, I thought, what? And I was in studio at one point and we were in bits, we were rolling on the floor because, do you remember when Susan had her horse riding lesson?
Yeah.
And honestly, I was in studio pretending I was on a horse running around the studio and we were rolling in laughter. So, you know, I think, all things considered, I get some of the greatest drama, comedy, and ordinary stuff. And I love it. I adore it. So, possibly.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we come to the final bit of this podcast, which is a question from the last cast member we were interviewing, a bit like Pass the Parcel.
Right.
And the last cast member we interviewed was James, who plays Harrison.
Okay.
So we've actually got two questions. The first one is from Harrison to Susan, and prepare yourself for this, Charlotte. Harrison's question for Susan is: do crabs think octopuses can fly?
Of course he asked me that. Of course. I'm not sure that crabs ever think about octopuses.
Very good.
Yeah, that's all I can say. Yeah.
Okay. I'll move quickly on to the question from James to Charlotte, and that's: do you believe that Susan's gossiping is a force for good?
I think it can be. I think Susan's gossiping could be used for good things to happen. I think she's berated for gossiping, but sometimes there has to be someone in a room who says things how they are. You know, they have to be out there. And I think very often a lot of the characters in the programme don't say what they're thinking, and that leads to complications. Good storylines, but complications. So I think there has to be someone, and we all know people who are, you know, straight down the line and say it how it is. Now I know that's not necessarily gossiping, but I think Susan's could be used to good if she thought a little bit more about what she said before she said it. So yeah.
James also told us that he worries a lot about you, Charlotte, because whenever you turn up, he says you've always got a broken limb from your skiing or activities.
Do you know, listen to this. A few years ago, I went on holiday with my family to America. We were running up some steps. They were like natural rocky steps. And I fell on my knee, landed on a rock, and my knee swelled. I thought, oh my God, this is terrible. Anyway, we carried on the day, and I thought, oh God, my knee hurts. And as the day progressed, we went to play, what's it called? Frisbee golf, is it? Yeah, frisbee golf.
Yeah.
Okay, we were just outside Boston playing frisbee golf, which is on kind of like a hillside, and I was following my daughters and my husband, you know, hobbling around. My knee was getting more and more painful. In the end, I said, I can't do this anymore. I went back anyway. As the day progressed, it got a bit worse and worse. I couldn't stand it. Anyway, I found out by going to the hospital that I'd broken my kneecap, and I'd spent the whole day in agony. Had to be flown home from America. We had to leave our daughters in New York. I mean, it was just crazy. Anyway, so turn up to Archer's recording with my leg in plaster. So that was the one. Then a year later, I go skiing with the family.
Yeah.
Coming down this slope, they're ahead of me. Suddenly, I don't know what happened. Up in the air, broken collarbone, you know. BP bagged or whatever they call it off the slope, you know, going to studio, arm in sling. And so that was 2 years on the trot. So that's why he's saying
Yes.
that. So yeah, but
Yes.
hopefully, touch wood, I'm not
Yeah.
going to break anything else. Yeah.
Good.
So yeah. I had an accident for 2 years.
Well, hopefully no more. Charlotte, it's just been a joy to talk to you and talk about Susan and everything Ambridge. Charlotte Martin, thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a
Thank you.
joy, and it's been lovely meeting you, and I hope you and everyone who watches this just has a laugh and has a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.